Welcome to season 2, episode 1 of the Better Coach podcast. Today we're bringing the juice. We have Andrew Romeo, owner of Romeo Athletics and Ethos Medical Aesthetics and Wellness. I brought on Andrew today because I got to see him speak in front of a classroom at Springfield College, and I could tell the second he got on that stage to talk that he was the type of guy to not make excuses and do what needed to be done to get the results that he wanted. These are the types of people I am looking to bring onto this podcast, people who can truly inspire my audience and act as a role model as they embark on the hard journey of life. We all know in the world of strength conditioning that there is no such thing as a work-life balance, and life is hard, but oftentimes the things we want are on the other side of hard. With that being said, we plan on talking about growth as a coach within the private sector, business decisions, and the mentorships. Shall we get started, my friend?
Yeah, James, thank you for having me on, man. An honor to be on.
Yes, sir.
Especially to kick off season 2. I love it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Wanted to bring the juice for season 1 or episode 1 of season 2, baby.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
Let's do it.
Let's say that, a student just got out of undergrad, they just finished up, and they're looking to work within the field of strength and conditioning, but they don't really know what to do, right? Maybe they dabbled in collegiate, maybe they're thinking about the pros, but they're not quite there yet, but they're also thinking about the private sector. What are some reasons you would give to somebody to work within the private sector industry?
So I would take that back a second, and I would
Sure.
ask you kind of do some self-reflection. Where do you what calls you? What calls to you? What fuels your fire? Where do you want to be? Working in the private sector, if you're going to come this route, you're not just working with athletes. And I'll be honest, working with athletes is like working with racehorses. It's easy, it's fun, it's exciting, but you don't have to do that much to get improvement. They just get better.
Right.
It's amazing,
So true.
right? Whereas
Yeah.
when you're working with general pop, that's not necessarily the case. You could be working with people that just had a knee done, a hip done, a
Right.
neck done. But
Right.
what if changing lives fuels your fire and changing the way people can kind of carry themselves throughout their lives, see themselves, have their own self-value, the private sector has something to offer you.
Right, I totally agree. I've been lucky. I've told myself I live life without putting myself in a box. I used to do that. I used to only want to be a personal trainer. Used to only want to be a physical therapist. But now I'm like, okay, let me not put myself in a box. And I started exploring the collegiate route. I'm doing private sector right now with Drew McConaughey at Train for Life. And I'm realizing that, like, although the collegiate route is super fun, like you said, it's easy to get improvements. We take things a lot slower within Training for Life. We're not pushing people as hard. We're aware that, these people are not adults. They're like 40, 50-year-old, maybe 60-year-old and like older than that. And, we have to kind of take that process and slow it down a little bit so that we can get them to where they want to be without getting them injured or whatever, because that's ultimately going to set them back way more than if we were just to, take it slower. You know what I mean?
No, it's good. It's good for you to have that insight as a younger coach, because
Yeah.
it's really hard not to take the training that works for you and apply it to
Right.
everybody. But
Right.
as every age population comes recovery issues and overuse issues, and also competency patterns that they've been using or developing for 20 years of sitting at a desk and
Right.
have been rolled over for 20 years. Okay. Well, how do you fix that? What are you going to do? And you got to go beyond your personal scope and take a broader reach with that. So it's good that you already have that mindset of, okay, what's this look like? How do we get this progression going? Yeah, it's probably not going to be a linear progression for a 60-year-old. You're probably it's probably not going to work out.
No, not at all. Not at all. So in terms of like the difference of like the skill set that we have as like a private sector coach and like a collegiate coach, right? It's a lot easier just to come in as a collegiate coach, in my opinion, and just kind of read a program. Everyone's doing the same thing, right? You might have a few stranglers here and there who are, maybe they're returned to play and they got injured and they're just trying to get back. So maybe they're on a different type of program. But, within the private sector, you might have like large group classes, you might have semi-private classes going all at the same time. And so you need to have a little bit more fluidity, a little bit better logistics in terms of how you're using your space and things like that. So what are some skills aspiring collegiate or like professional coaches can get by only working within the private sector? And like, I kind of want to touch upon both professionally as a coach, but also management and like the business side.
Sure. So big question, which is a good question, but multiple-sided question, right? So skills you could only get working in the private sector. And I don't know. I've never worked with let's say Olympians with a team or something like that in a strength conditioning center. Well, something that's challenging, that I see that happens a lot in the private sector for personal training, semi-private training. Let's say I'm running 4 people in a 2,000 square foot facility at the same time.
Mm,
There's minimal equipment, and all 4 of them are on a separate program. So what
yep.
I have to start sorting out is what are their equipment needs? What's their progression for them that day? What is their exercise knowledge? How far can I push them? How much attention do they need? But also, how does each one of those programs line up space wise with other people? Are
Mm,
they both need a back squat? They both need to squat. Well, there's only one rack. How is that going to
mm,
flow together? And what kind of
right.
experience am I delivering? Because in the collegiate strength world, pro strength world, they're on a team. They got to show
Mm,
up.
right.
In a private sector, they're paying you a shit ton of money to deliver a product and deliver a service and
Mm,
deliver an experience. You need
right.
to be experience minded. How am I delivering the best experience I can for this client? Not just do what I say because this is a program for the day.
Mm,
Like it doesn't work like that. You really have to
100%.
be client focused and client driven. And
Mm,
even on, as you asked, kind of the other flip side of that, the management side, the business side,
right.
you're managing an experience all the time. And it's the experience from their initial exposure to you, to your communication channels, to your customer service. I can't tell you how many people have signed up just to call them back as soon as I get a message.
Mm,
They send a email in as soon as I can get on my phone. I am texting them, calling them, emailing them. What's going on? You're attentive and you're attentive to their needs.
yeah.
That's what people want. That's the experience they're looking for. They're not looking for, it's a week later. I got back to you because you wanted to train. No, that's
Yeah.
not how you get clients. That's not how you grow.
No, no, not at all. For sure. I would
Hopefully that
also kind
answers your
of,
question a little
no, for sure. I kind of also want to build off on that a little bit because you're talking about like that management
bit. Sure.
side. So how do you kind of like, do you feel like that management side also kind of would leak into the collegiate setting, for example, right? Like, oh, if I'm able to deliver a high quality service, a high quality product to the people within the private sector, do you think that that program is going to be way better when you kind of also transition into the collegiate setting versus somebody who has never done anything in the private sector?
Sure, absolutely, 100%. I mean, there's
For sure.
definitely transferability of skills. Are you
Right.
able to communicate well? Are you able to? So I would assume, and I have to make this assumption because I don't have firsthand experience. If I am running multiple teams, and I've done this for high schools, I've been a strength coach for high schools. I am communicating with coaches. I need to be able to communicate effectively with a sport coach. I need to also not just communicate with them of what I'm doing, but also what they need. What do you
Mm,
guys need from me? What are we looking to develop? What skills are we looking to develop? What team
mm,
camaraderie, what team building are we looking to do here? And make sure that I'm delivering an excellent product for that coach. So they want me to be the strength coach. And then
for
take it
sure.
on turn. How do I be excellent for my athletes? How do I make sure that I'm the coach that they need, that I'm listening to them and I am supporting them? I'm not giving into what they say all the time. I'm pushing them to be better every day and holding them accountable and not letting them bring excuses, but still
Mm,
listening.
for sure. And kind of also touching upon that very first point in terms of professionally as a coach, I feel like that like made a big difference for me as a collegiate coach. Going in with restriction, you know, Coach Fight in their class for strength and conditioning, one of the things he wanted us to do was, you're gonna have this equipment and that's it. You got to figure out what you're gonna do with that. Like if you got one long band, like you got to figure it out. You know what I mean? You still got to
Yeah.
deliver a full whole program, a full whole day of lift with this long band. Like, I don't know what you're gonna do, but figure it out, right? And
Yeah.
that was
What
a
are you
great
gonna do? You doing
experience,
good
right?
mornings?
Right. You can do good morning, maybe band and overhead press or whatever. Like, you got to find a way to make it work. But as well on like the other side, like setting up those lifts, kind of understanding the logistics, how we're gonna space things out. Okay, Jimmy over here needs the bar. Josh over there needs the trap bar. Okay, how are we gonna set this up, make it look pretty? And then when I come back into the weight room itself, and I'm like, dude, this is way easier. Everyone is doing the exact same thing. All I got to do is figure out how to make it look nice and make it flow, you know? And so from
Yep.
there, like my efficiency has increased because I was able to get that experience and work in this restricted setting.
I completely agree. And I think the biggest thing comes down to like the said principle. What
Yeah.
specific adaptations for imposed demands, right?
Hmm.
Everybody, every coach, every athlete, every client has adaptations that they're looking for. What are you
Right.
going to deliver on?
Right. And there's so many different ways, right? We always say in this industry, there's multiple ways to skin a cat. You know what I mean? We don't
Mhm.
necessarily need to do cleans to get somebody explosive or do some type of Olympic lift. You know, we can just have them jump, you know, we can have them do some type of plyo,
I
do some
agree.
type of form triple extension. You know, so there's a bunch of different ways that we can get the same type of adaptation that we're looking for.
100%.
100%. So I know that you when you're talking at Spring for College, you were kind of talking about like life can get boring sometimes. Like coaching can get boring sometimes, right? We come in and we do it every day. We might be doing the same program 8, 9, 10 times a day, you know, and like as me recently entering the private sector, personally, I don't mind it. That's just more reps for me to get in to kind of refine that lesson each day. But you know, imagine doing that 10 years, 20 years, 30 years in a row. I mean, like I'm lucky and like we cycle through programs every 4 weeks and then we have a little deload week for a week. But you know, so we're constantly changing things every month or so. But you know, I honestly I can't really begin to imagine what it's like to do that for a prolonged period of time. So what does life kind of look like after that? Like let's say you've been doing this for 10 to 20 years. What is life like?
So, I mean, everyone's going to be different with that answer, right? In my personal
Right.
opinion, you start relying more on the personal relationships that you form with clients. These are your
Mhm.
network of people. These are the people I'm more excited to talk to my clients about what they have going on, what's going on with their lives, their personal lives, their careers, helping them progress, and not just helping them, having a conversation and actively listening, and
Mhm.
giving them that person to talk to. 'Cause we spend a lot of time with people. You spend
Mhm.
2 hours, 3 hours a week with someone with undivided attention. That's the part that keeps it interesting. Because I mean,
Right.
dude, I can teach someone how to squat, how to bench, how to swing a kettlebell, how to do a million different things. And I've done it 1,000 times at least over. But
Mhm.
every day is a new conversation, and every day they're walking
Right.
in. So like that's, and I mean, when I talked at Springfield, I talked a lot about connecting with people,
Right.
and also for you guys as newer coaches coming in, this you're typically connecting with people that are doing pretty well in life.
Right.
And this is a really good network for you to develop. These are people that can help you. I've had multiple businesses form out of connections of me training people.
Right.
That's a big thing. It's breaking down a trust factor and making someone trust you, and you're trusting them and getting to know them through conversation.
Mhm. That's very interesting that you say that because honestly, ever since I've gotten into this space as well, like I say this often, Andrew, like I say this often. I've never been in a field where there's been so many hardworking people in my life. And I thought I worked hard and then I got into this field and I realized, holy shit, people are working 5 times harder than me and I got to get my shit together. You know what I mean? So like even outside
Yeah.
of that though, without like outside of the field, while I was at my internship, you know, I'm meeting handfuls of people who are doing things professionally at a level that I can, you know, ask them like, hey, I need you for this type of work. Are you willing to work with me with this? And like that in itself is super beneficial because now I can elevate my own thing, right? And maybe there's like another little thing we can do, like, hey, if I coach you and I do this, maybe we can work out some type of deal. And Coach Fight loves that. Like, hey, if I do this
Yeah.
for you, you do this for me, like favors for favors, right? And just kind of like gaining value, giving each other value, not necessarily monetarily, but also just through what you have to offer, right? So can you kind of talk about like that as well? Like, what's your approach to that? Are you looking for more like, hey, I'm gonna just pay you full up, like straight up full price, or do you also like to kind of work that route of favor for favor?
In the professional world, everything
Right,
has a monetary value on it. So I
right,
mean, and that just is what it is at this price. Like at this point of my life, I have to be paid for my time because time is my most valuable resource, and I don't have much time to give.
mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean though. Somewhat we were referring to the favor for favor thing. In my mind, sounds like mentorship. And I am definitely willing to trade time for mentorship. Um, in terms of I'm in groups, collaborative groups, in masterminds. People will go on there. I'm paying most of the time to be in these groups, and I'm not sharing. I'm giving my feedback because I want to help them. Because I know when I need that help, they'll share and they'll help me. So just that's kind of where I'm at with it. Depends on the level that you're working with, what you're doing. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely always collaboration. But if you're talking about like client stuff, they're gonna they're they gotta pay the going rate because I'm charging
Mm-hmm.
everybody the going rate.
100%. Yeah, I know. Like, especially nowadays, right? We talk about getting money. getting paid for what we do. And within a field where oftentimes we aren't getting paid what we deserve, it's very important to make sure that we're getting paid, you know?
It's hard, man. It's a hard thing to do when someone tells you,
Yeah,
"Hey, I can't afford this." Sure, you can cut them somewhat of a deal, but there's only a limit. There's a limit to where
right,
you can go because I have four people that are dependent on me to put food on the table, not including
right,
myself. I got to go out and earn.
right. You know, that's the part, right, that I feel like I didn't really truly understand until kind of later, right? Like I was just like, yeah, I got you, I'll do it for free. Next thing you know, I'm burnt out. Like I'm not getting paid for nothing, and I'm just like, here, like, at least you could do is do some type of favor for favor, give me some type of value back. But I wasn't in that business mindset at that point. Nowadays, if I'm doing
Yep.
something in exchange for my time, it's either going to be for money or I'm getting some type of benefit from it as well. Like,
Sure.
getting on a podcast or, maybe you can sit down and teach me a thing or two about this or that, something at least.
Yeah.
Right. But,
Absolutely. And
that's,
in
that's
every
got to be a different
situation, there's
level.
something to learn.
Right. 100%. I've learned a lot of things along the way. Lots of mistakes have been made,
And
but
that's
we
part of the
gotta learn.
journey, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of times at the beginning of your journey, you do give away more of your time, and you do give
Yeah.
away more of your stuff. And I also, if I know there's an area where I have so much to learn, I will give away my time because I'm like, I just need to be near this person and
Right.
hear what they're talking about. They're talking about a certain type of real estate that I'm trying to get into, and they know so
Mhm.
much. Yeah, let's go do something together so I can absorb everything from you.
Exactly. 100%. That's the side of mentorship that I think is important. Just being able to absorb everything, kind of be next to that person, spend time with that person. And, I kind of have a similar relationship with Coach Fight in that way, where we talk, we spend time together, and in exchange, I just learn so much every single day, every single
Mhm.
time he opens his mouth. Right.
I mean, the biggest advice I can give you for that relationship is do exactly what you're doing and learn. He's made all of the mistakes that you don't have to make if you
Mhm.
listen and you learn from his mistakes and hear what he has to tell you. He can
Mhm.
expedite your learning curve and put you so far down the path that, and hope, I'm sure that he did that same thing where we can just kind of, the saying, you stand on the shoulders of giants.
Right.
You keep getting bigger and bigger from the people that you're learning from.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Kind of, kind of tracking back a little bit towards that entrepreneurial route, I touched that like, yeah, we don't really make enough money. We don't get paid what we deserve, considering the amount of hours that we put in, especially as a collegiate coach, sometimes we might be working holidays. We are basically working year round trying to get these athletes ready for the off season while making sure that they're, you know, at a right point physically for the in season. And so do you think that as a strength and conditioning coach, do you think that there's like a new standard to kind of take more of an entrepreneurial route? Maybe if we're a collegiate coach, we spend whatever time that we have on trying to build a business, right? Because at the end of the day, let's say, for example, you get let off, well, what options do you have now? So it's like, can you kind of talk about that as well?
The biggest thing I would talk about there, it can be your neck, but don't go into it blind with not knowing anything about business. Take time
Mhm.
to read the books, to find the mentors, to learn about, hey, how do I find a location? What kind of demographics am I looking for? Who am I trying to serve with this business? What's the price points? How am I going to get it? How am I going to sell it? You can be the best coach in the world, but if no one knows you're the best coach in the world, no one's going to buy it from you. Okay,
Mhm.
how do you sell? What's your selling process look like? What's your like? There's so much detail to this stuff, and like you guys are in a great spot because there's mentors out there and programs out there to teach you this that you can
Mhm.
just go pay and they will lay out the framework for you to be successful. When I opened a gym 14 years ago, there was none of that. It was um, open it up and figure it out as you go. And like
Mhm.
I had some business background, but not, I wasn't smart enough. Like I could only wish I knew what I know now then. I wish I did. It would have
Mhm.
been a game changer. But with that, if it is the direction for any strength coach that's listening to this podcast or anybody that's going to the collegiate route that's like, hey, maybe down the road I'd open my own facility, do your work on the business front because you can be the best coach in the world. It does not mean that you're going to be a successful entrepreneur.
Mhm. What about something that's a little bit like less risk on the entry, right? Like, let's say we're not looking to get a set location. We're not trying to pay rent, pay for all of those things. But let's say, for example, we go on a more online route where now we're using what these clients have available to them already. Let's say they have a gym that they go to already. And if we can get them on a call, get their information, figure out their goals, plan accordingly, and just help them reach those goals, do you think that that would be a better route for somebody like a collegiate coach who doesn't have much time, or
It
even
could
like
be.
less risky?
It could be. It could be less risky, and it could be a route to go. What I would recommend you do, rather than doing that, is find. And I don't know how Coach Fight runs his business, but find some, or how Drew runs his business. I don't know how it works. I can
Mm,
only speak for myself of how my business works. Find someone like me, and I'm going to help you be what I refer to as an entrepreneur. I'm going to handle
mm,
the rent. I'm going to handle the insurance. I'm going to handle the equipment costs. I'm going to handle all of that. But it's up for you to get your equipment. You'll get paid what you kill. So go get your clients. Start building
mm,
up that client base. I'll take a percentage of what they're paying you, but it's a no risk. What happens? You don't get clients. Okay, you didn't get paid, but you didn't put anything out to do it. And start
mm,
building your chops that way, learning how to sell that way, learning how to client manage that way. Work with something where you can be an entrepreneur within a business. And
mm.
I mean, if any young coach is looking for these opportunities, I have a network that's worldwide that I can connect you with someone that would provide you with this opportunity in the
Right.
private sector. But that's where me personally, I believe in in-person coaching. I believe in connecting with
Right.
people, feeling energies, reading energies. I do a lot of online coaching on like the leadership front and all of that kind
Yeah,
of stuff. It's hard. It takes away
it
a
is.
lot of your senses. Like it's
It
hard to
is.
read someone's energy, their aura when they're walking in when it's on Zoom, and it's hard
100%.
to hold someone accountable on Zoom versus
100%.
let me see you, let me let's chat, let's hang out, let me read your body language.
Hmm.
That's what I believe in. I'm sure you could bring on an online coach onto your podcast that makes $1 million a year, and they would tell you the opposite. That online coaching is the way to go. Um,
Hmm.
I've never done it, so I can't speak to it in that regard.
Yeah, I feel like it really does just kind of boil down to our values as a coach, right? I think we share similar values in that, but like, yeah, I'd like to see your body language. I'd like to see how you walk into the facility. I like to see the energy that you bring and the attitude that you really bring towards the workout. And if we're on Zoom and like I can't do that and we're having problems communicating because it's not as much of an open line and this is a problem now because of that reason, then it kind of just messes up the whole thing. And like you said, it kind of does dull our senses a lot. It's a lot harder to kind of make these decisions in the moment on the fly if need be, if we're kind of working with this limited information that we get.
I so I mean I existed long before COVID, right? In the
Mm,
base, I saw a lot of people pivot and try to go towards COVID, and
yeah,
not that many people were successful. Sure, you'd find these small
right.
niches where someone does well, but not a lot of people were successful for it. Where I see
Mm,
people have a lot of success with it is more on the business mentoring side, where it's you
right,
only need one call a week, or you need one call a month to check in on, not so much the exercise prescription side. But again,
right.
you could probably find a coach that tells you something completely different than me. I would just
Mm,
question how long their business has been around and how long it will be
right.
sustainable.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I feel like it is kind of too much of a new thing to really say 100%. Like, yeah, this is a surefire way of making buku money, you know,
Yeah. I mean,
for
dude, our
sure.
whole profession is a new thing. Like you look back,
Yeah,
like strength and conditioning is a new thing. Like
right,
30, 40 years ago, straight like a lot of teams were like, oh, you don't want to lift weights, you'll get too bulky and slow.
right.
So like this whole industry is kind of like the wild, wild west still. We're getting a little
Mm,
bit better, a little bit
right.
more. As I said, you can hire mentors, we can lay out the process for you, we can do all that stuff, but it's still pretty wild westy.
Mm, for sure. Yeah, I agree because it is crazy, right? We're still working on things like, hey, your kids should be lifting, right? And these are still myths. There's still all these things that like we need to kind of overcome as a community, as an organization, rather, as the NSCA, right? Like we need to do our part, especially as coaches, as individuals, to really educate everybody and be like, hey, like I know people say like, you're gonna stunt your growth if you're a kid and you're working out, but that's just not true. Like, give them the information, give them the research articles, and just let it be known that like this is the new new. right? We don't have to live up the old things anymore, right? We have new information coming out every single day through research articles, people doing research all of the time, finding new things, interesting little niche topics that kind of let us get deeper into like what we need to know to solve these types of problems.
I mean, dude, I dispel myths every day. Every
Yeah,
day. It's so,
yeah.
as you said, kids lifting weights. Should I be using creatine? I heard creatine's going to mess up my kidneys, this or that. And
Mm.
you're just like, oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's repeat these questions and do it again.
Yep. Literally just the other day, one of the clients at Train for Life was like, "What do you think about creatine?" And I was like, "It's one of the best supplements you should ever be taking. You should take it at any age, all the time." And then because she was
Yeah,
like, "Because
absolutely.
my boyfriend, he was like, my boyfriend said it's not good for you," and I'm like, "Well, why?" Right? And I'm like, why is it not good? She's like, "Well, I get like water weight and like, make me a little poofy." I'm like, "No, not really gonna do any of that." I have to like dispel all those
Ex-
myths. So I
Exactly. No,
totally get where you're
exactly.
coming from. Yeah,
There's so much science out there to back so many positive benefits of
yeah.
it, to then have it turn around and being like one study at one time with someone that had a pre-existing kidney issue has now led
Right.
everyone to think that your kidneys are going to fail if you take this thing. Oh my God. But I mean, and
Yeah.
like we're just getting started on this path, right? And like as you
Yeah.
said, kids lifting weights. Well, I heard it's going to affect their growth plates and they're not going to grow. No. But we have to educate the people and keep, as you
Mhm.
said, keep informing people and keep informing people until eventually it becomes common knowledge.
For sure. Kind of like pivoting here now, getting a little bit more on like the private sector side, a little bit like business decisions. So,
Sure.
lots of businesses share the same mission, right? Do no harm, get people stronger, prevent injury, blah, 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 right? Same old stuff that any new coach is saying, right? Oh, this is my why. So how do you as like a business separate yourself from your competition when everybody has the same exact mission?
It's honestly listening to people,
Mm,
listening and connecting. That's how, like, and I said this when I was at Springfield, let people be heard, let
yep.
them talk, listen to what they're saying. Don't think ahead to how you're going to respond. I already have a pre canned approach. Like, if you just listen and really give them what they need, they will trust you. And that is the
Hmm.
biggest thing that you can give them is that they can trust, that you will make them feel comfortable and lead them on their journey.
Mm,
That's what people need. And I don't mean to disparage anybody that's teaching strength and conditioning in terms of anyone can teach someone how to squat. I can like I my 8-year-old daughter can teach someone how to bench press. She's been exposed to it enough. She knows the cues of how to bench. That's not your job. Yes, it's part of your job, but your job
mm,
is to listen to people and connect with people. And that's how you can separate yourself. Because there is so many people that come in to or you come into a gym, and I already have a preconceived notion of how I'm going to train you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to tell them how shitty this program is and how great I am. Well, you're not listening. You're just
mm,
talking about yourself. You should be listening way more than you're talking. And that's my again my opinion, but that's how we differentiate ourselves here is
mm.
listening to the people and honestly doing that, not just coming in being like, nah, I really like Olympic lifts. I think you're gonna
Right.
clean, no matter what you say.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. It kind of actually goes hand in hand with what Drew told me recently, right? He told me what makes a good workout, right? He asked me that question. He was like, is it the program or is it the coach? And I'm like, it's the coach, right? Obviously, that's the obvious answer. But, it kind of did that, peel back a layer or two, and realize like everything you just said, that's what being a coach is about, listening to people, making sure that they're making the right decisions. You're educating them on things so that they know what to do. And, you're not kind of breathing down their neck. You're not trying to control them, be like, hey, we're not trying to put them in a box and just like say this is what we're gonna do, right? A good coach is gonna make adjustments on the fly based on like what the program is, right? If the program wants them to squat and then all of a sudden they have knee pain and they can't go past like they can't even go down like 10 degrees in their squat without pain, are you gonna make them still squat? Right? Like no, you're gonna find some type of like regression or change the exercise or something. Right. And that's like a very surface level thing to it. But deeper down, you dig down more and there's like even more things about that where it's like, yeah, we need to make adjustments for this reason, for that reason, blah, 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 you know?
Yep. No, I completely agree. And a big thing that happens with a lot of newer coaches is you only know what you know. So if I
Right.
only know Olympic lifting, I'm only teaching, and I think Olympic lifting is the best thing that on God's given earth, and this is what I'm going to teach, and this is how I'm going to teach it, and everything else is bullshit. Or maybe I came in, all I believe is in kettlebells, and everybody's got to use. But like, the further you get into this thing, the more knowledge you gain, and then from there, you start expanding your toolbox, and you
Right.
understand what to apply when, and everything doesn't
Mhm.
have to be a hammer.
Right. Like people are always like, yeah, squat, bench, deadlift. These are the best exercises, right? Cleans, some type of Olympic lift. But at the end of the day, right, it's only just another tool within the toolbox, like you said, right? Like there's
Yep.
so many ways, like we were talking about earlier, to get the same adaptation. Not one exercise is king, right? You know,
Yep.
let's say for example, like you have a 16-year-old and they're squatting. Yeah, squatting might be the best thing for them just to build up strength. But for a 60-year-old person, probably not. Or you might have to take a different approach. You might have to maybe get them on a safety bar. Maybe we're doing box squats with like a kettlebell in a goblet position. Like we're maybe doing something differently, loading it differently. Maybe we're having them do a single leg variation because of aching knee pain on one leg. So like not one exercise is king. And I feel like that's something that I've been really trying to remember is that, there's so many different ways to skin a cat. I don't necessarily have to go to these big three lists of squat, bench, deadlift all the time or like cleans, the fancy stuff that some people might say. Like we can really just simplify it down to basic movement patterns, push, pull, hinge, etc., and still get a
Yep.
great result, you know?
Absolutely. An analogy, right? You have a bunch of different tools in a toolbox. Your job is to paint the room.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're not going to take a hammer and paint with your hammer. You're going to find a paint,
No.
and you're going to use a
Yeah.
paintbrush. And that's the same thing you're using with like a squat. I need to get this person's legs stronger. Well, if that like you're not going to use the hammer if the squat hurts their knees, maybe you're going to do
Right.
RDLs. Maybe you're going to do something.
Right.
So to your point, have multiple tools in your toolbox. Expand your thought. Don't live in a box. Nothing
Mm.
happens in a vacuum. You need to be well versed and well rounded to really differentiate yourself from that market and be the expert. So when you do listen, you then can deliver.
Right, 100%. I think that's a way better approach of just coming in with like a concrete plan, right? I feel like I didn't really understand what people meant by like, oh, the best coach is the one that can act on the fly. Like I thought that was just like, oh shit, there's a leak in the roof, and now we have to move everything over here and just readjust everything. Like, no, that's not really what it is. That is a part of it, Andrew, but in reality, it's making those small adjustments on the fly to cater to what people need based on what they're telling you.
And I had a question: what's causing the leak?
I don't know. We'll
You know what
see.
I mean?
Maybe it was just
Yeah,
bad, like a
exactly.
bad thing
That's
in the roof,
it. And like,
you know?
man, my knees. Maybe your that leak is your knee. And being like,
Right.
man, well, why does your knee do that? Well, let's rewind that a second. Yes, I'm not a physical
Mhm.
therapist. No, I'm not an orthopedic surgeon,
Yeah.
but I have enough general knowledge to figure out
Right.
watching you walk and move. That's probably why your knee hurts. Let's figure that out.
Probably 100%. There's so much knowledge in just watching somebody move, like literally it's just look at it, like a little joint by joint approach, perhaps, and just be like, okay, well, if this joint's compromised, maybe we got to look above or below. That's just a good rule of thumb,
100%, man.
you know?
That's the easiest thing to do. Look above and below it. Let's figure it out from there.
100%. So I kind of want to pivot a little bit again, just to be conscious of the time. I kind of do want to talk about that mentorship side of you. Like I know you've been doing a lot of mentorship things. So in terms of mentorship, the grind culture has been up on the up and rise lately, right? Jocko's, David Goggins, maybe even throw Coach Fight in there, right? People who just have no fucking excuses. They do what they need to do. They get the work done. They come in and they don't complain, right? So is that like a type of mindset that you're trying to instill within your mentees? And if so, why would you want that type of quality?
Yeah, so I like those people. I like
Yeah.
the David Goggins. I
That's
like
it.
Coach Fight. I like Jocko. I listen to his podcast every week. I like what he stands for, and I like his original book, Extreme Ownership, of owning what's going on around you, owning the situation you're in. As a leader, that's a hard concept because someone that works for you, maybe they messed up, maybe they did X, Y, and Z. Rather than turning around and blaming them, owning that, I mean, like, all right, cool, I didn't teach them well enough. That's my fault.
Mm,
How do I need to do instructing them? So, to your
mm,
question of do I want to instill that in my mentees? Yeah, absolutely. I would love them to have that ownership mindset. Own your shit. Figure it
mm,
out. Figure out how to work better, work harder, work smarter. Do I expect anybody though to work as hard as I do? No.
mm,
And the reason I don't is It's not their business. It's my business. No one is going to care as much as I care. It's just no matter
Hmm.
what, and no matter how much I want them to care as much as I do, they're not. And they're not going to be
Yeah.
thinking about it at 2 in the morning and then getting up at 4 in the morning to get your date. Like it's
Yeah.
just, and you have to accept that as a business owner and understand people have limits. People have limits of what you can push them. You can tell them what the expectations are. I don't accept excuses. I don't. I want people to own their things, but you also can't just hammer that at people. You have to
Right.
talk that through with people
Hmm.
and tell them where you're coming from.
Yeah. I'm sure. I feel like you said, no one's gonna care as much as you, right? Like people like us where we kind of get up and we just go, go, go. There's no such thing as stopping for us. It's a little weird, like our lifestyle. Like I don't fully have it figured out yet, but and I don't know why I'm like this either, but I just know that I am. But like, I also don't expect somebody like my girlfriend to live this lifestyle as well. Like by no means am I like yes, it's fun, but like sometimes though it's not. Like waking up at 5 in the morning, maybe 3 in the morning to get over to the facility for 4:30. Maybe that's not something that people want to be doing every day. And like that's fair. Like it is what it is. But like to me, this is something that I want to do. And so, trying to how do you get people to meet you where you're at versus to where they're at, on that differential. Let's say, for example, like my girlfriend, she likes to wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's what she likes to do. That's what gets her productive. But for me, in my lifestyle and the things that I want, I'm the type of guy who has to wake up at 3 in the morning to get what I want. So I have enough time through my day just to do everything, you know?
So I don't think that you have to ask people to meet you where you're at, as long as they're
Mm,
accepting of who you are. It's very
mm.
similar. My wife is not a early morning person. She would love to sleep as long as you would let her sleep. Yes, obviously children and other responsibilities need to get taken care of and you need to wake up. But
Right.
I enjoy waking up before everybody else and having a couple
Okay.
hours in the morning where I can clear my thoughts. I can journal, I can drink a coffee, I can if I want, I can come to the gym or I can go do work or I can do whatever I want to do.
Mm,
And honestly, man, it's cool, James, that you feel that way because almost look at it as your superpower. You're going to be able to get so much stuff done every day. People are going to be snoozing. People aren't going to, by the time 9 o'clock rolls around, you've gotten a whole day's worth of shit done and they haven't even
mm.
started yet. And I
Yeah.
love that. But
Yeah,
like
me too.
that's similar to the role models that you're speaking of. That's somewhat inherent. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why
Right.
I feel that way or why I love that. But it's like if I had to sit around all morning and not do anything, I'm gonna go nuts, man. And the mornings I don't come into work, I'm doing dishes, I'm doing laundry, I'm cleaning the house at
Mhm.
6 in the morning on a Saturday because I just want to get shit done.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like it's a funny thing because I recently I started to develop a little bit of a pet peeve, but now I'm just like whatever. I laugh at it, but people are like, "Man, I gotta wake up so early," and it's like, dude, you're waking up at like 10 o'clock. Like you're waking up at 8 o'clock. Like I've been awake for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours already. Like I already did a whole work day, and you're now just getting up. Like
Yep.
I love that as well. I think it's so funny to me. I love that.
And that's where you like I at a certain point initially you would somewhat remind them of that. At this point, dude, I don't cool. Yeah, that's tough. That's rough. Like I just let it
Yeah,
go because
yeah,
that's who
let it
they
go.
are. And a
Yeah,
lot of times those people are up to 1 or 2 in the morning where I'm in bed
yeah.
by 8 o'clock. Like I'm done.
Hmm.
So we all got our own
Yeah,
places where
yeah,
we like to
100%.
wake up early, stay up late, whatever it may be. Um, but again, as I said, like when I work with a coach, like right, let's say you wanted to work with me. You sound like you'd be a perfect guy to work in the mornings. Let's hook you up. If you came in, you're like,
Mhm.
listen, man, I can't get up before 9. Like that's really early. All right, you're gonna be a midday afternoon guy. And I try to
Mhm.
meet coaches kind of where they are. And rather than
Mm.
forcing them to don't work with them, and like that's that entrepreneur thing. If you came into the gym and you're like, everybody calls me Rome. Rome, I really like working with teenagers and kids. All right, James,
Mhm.
let me help you develop a kids and teenage program. How are we going to do this together? And like my goal is to facilitate what fuels your fire. And that's like the
Mhm.
entrepreneur thing that I try to get people going on. I'm not going to force anybody to do anything because it doesn't work. I need to meet you where you're at and then try to help you move that forward down the line.
100%. You kind of hit something on the head. I wanted to ask this question, but I didn't know how to phrase it, and I feel like it wasn't quite necessary. But you know, as coaches, we talk all the time about filling up our own cup, right? Because we're always filling up other people's cups through training, giving them good encouragement, yada yada, in the weight room. And so, but also oftentimes we kind of neglect ourselves as a coach, right? As a manager, like how would you go about filling up the cup for your employees, right? You kind of touched upon, oh, if I'm not a morning person, I'm not going to have you coming in for the morning. I'm going to have you come in later, like things like that. Like, is there anything else beyond that that you're also trying to cater towards for that employee?
100%. So what we do is I do an exercise called the perfect day. So you and I would sit down, you get hired on, and you and I sit down, James, and I go, James, I want you to write me out your perfect day. What's it look like? Go into detail. What time are you waking up? What are you eating for breakfast? What kind of car are you driving? What kind of you working? How many vacations do you go on a year? What days do you work? What days don't you work? How much money do you need to make? Then you and
Mm,
I sit down and we try to reverse engineer that. How are we going to make it happen? We're not going to be there immediately, but maybe in a year, maybe we can get
right.
you to that perfect day. And then as you evolve, you get more responsibilities. You just bought a house. Okay, hey, Rome, my expenses just went way up. I need to make more money. All right, James, how are we going to make more money? What are we going to do? How do you want to make that money? Do you want to do it for recent personal training, semi-private training? Do you want to get the kids things rolling? But that's the big thing is everybody has a different version of their personal or their perfect day.
Mm,
And if I can help facilitate your perfect day, you're going to want to work for me and you're going to want to work
100%.
hard
Right.
because you also
100%.
see you're fulfilling what you want. So let's work together and make it happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's definitely something that I'm going to steal if I ever run a business. Kind of that perfect day, the mantra. That's actually awesome because, you're giving them the autonomy to work, right? I feel like, we kind of saw this uprise of work efficiency when COVID hit because people were starting to they started working from home. They kind of were able to build up their own schedule and work within their bounds, what made them work well. So like giving people that type of perfect day, like, that's a really great way to just to get people to work hard for you, like you said, and just be passionate and appreciative of like, wow, I have this amazing opportunity where my boss is like literally asking me, what is my perfect day? And he is doing his hardest to give me that exact perfect day. That's a person that I would want to work for forever. You know what I mean? So that's a really powerful thing right there.
And I mean, with that, there's going to be exceptions of when it doesn't happen, but you
Mhm.
work through it, right? James,
Right.
listen, if you want to make 150 grand a year, I'm going to need here in the mornings because that's when we're the busiest. I know you don't want to wake up
Mhm.
that early, but what's more important to you, sleeping in or making the money? And
Mhm.
then you make the decision. I don't have
Right.
to make the decision. If you're like, all right, man, I hear you. I'll be in early. Cool. All right, you're going to make more money.
Mhm.
But that money isn't everybody's driver, especially in this
Right.
field. Not everybody is money driven.
Mhm. And that it's kind of I also want to kind of backtrack a little bit because you were talking about like, yeah, if somebody really likes working with kids, I'm gonna make them work with kids. Um, I was at another talk. It was Isaiah Covington, the NBA sports performance coach for the Celtics, and he was talking about never be complacent, never get comfortable, right? And so I kind of wanted to get an idea of like, how do you try to facilitate growth outside of their strengths, right? Like, how do we get people to work in their weaknesses if we're trying to follow that perfect day model?
Sure. So, I mean, some of it can still be within what you're interested, but pushing that boundary more. Okay,
Mm,
working with kids is your wheelhouse. Okay, well, let's see. Let's make you uncomfortable via marketing. Okay, I want you to start making selfie videos breaking down the myths of training on youth athletes. Start talking about the benefits of youth athletes because everybody like you can grow in so many different directions, but still
right.
have it feed what feeds
Yeah,
your soul.
I get you.
And if that's working with athletes, I want to work with basketball players. All right, man. Well, how do you feel about talking online? Oh, I hate talking online. It makes me really uncomfortable. Well, we just identified something that you probably need to get better at.
Mhm. How about how about developing a brand new skill set, for example? Like, let's say it's a new coach, just to give a perspective, right? They only know like traditional weight training, like strength training. They don't know anything about like plyos or jump training or like Olympic lifts. They don't know how to like build power. How do you kind of like, in terms of like a business world with an employee, how do you teach them how to build power if they're just familiar with strength? If that makes sense. Like, we're teaching them a brand new
I set them
concept.
up for a course.
Set them up for a course.
Yeah, honestly, at this point, I'm just too busy to break down like fundamentals like that. And it's going to be like, hey,
Mm,
man, here's the course I recommend you do. Take this course, go through. And I work, I'm also a power athlete coach. I don't know if you've heard of power athlete.
mm,
So I'm one of their, they're called block one coaches. It's just a certification, but
mm,
they offer a lot of online or learning opportunities that go into like their speed program is called Speed Kills. You learn how
mm.
to train athletes to be faster, stuff like that. But like, I don't have the time necessarily to invest to teach people things where they can learn that on their own time.
Right. Understand.
And then,
Do you?
if as long
Go
as the
ahead.
program goes in line with me, good.
Yeah. Are you telling them to actively kind of be that independent person that educates themselves, right? Like grad school mindset, right? Like go to grad school. We're not now we have to do the learning ourselves. Like we're assigned the topics, but we have to go through the material, dig through it, and figure out what is valuable to us and what we can use. Kind of like figure it out, on our own.
Hmm? Yeah, a lot of
Right.
that is, and I mean, I'm always here as a resource. Bounce
Mm,
anything off of me, and I'm hoping that you'll teach me something that I haven't
mm,
seen before, heard before, or maybe I heard it 20 years ago, and it's filtered out here, and you're bringing it
right.
back to light. I'm like, oh man, I completely forgot about that. That's great, thank you.
Mm, yeah.
But yeah, a lot of it is somewhat self-directed learning, or if I'm hosting, so I taught for USAW for a while. I taught their level ones and level twos. I was a USAW level two coach for a long time, and a competitive Olympic weightlifter for a long time.
Mm,
So like that's one of the things where I'll bring a USAW level one here and encourage all of my coaches to take it
mm.
and learn in the course in person that way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really do like how, in terms of like business, you offer these opportunities for growth outside of their scope, right? Like something that they might not even know about yet, but you're kind of bringing that in, you're introducing that type of information to them. And ultimately, for that, you're making them a better coach, which is going to help you and your business, and it's going to help them as an individual, professionally as well.
I mean, as long as you can take one tool away from anything you do and learn how to apply it, that's
Yeah,
winning.
100%. Yeah. So, like outside of like that grind mentality, what other qualities are you trying to instill within your mentees or employees?
For everybody,
Yeah.
it could be mentees, employees. It's to what we
Even your
talked about
kids,
before of
you know?
my kids, everybody. It's slowing down and listening
Mhm.
because we're all in such a rush and we're all go, 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 move fast. It's slow down. I mean, I was on a call today. I run leadership work with the Royal Navy.
Mm,
So I had 10 of their leaders today that I'm working with. And well, that's one of those things of you just got to slow down and listen. And it's the same thing with kids of slowing down and not judging people, not having a big knee jerk reaction of slow down and listen to them. What are they talking about? What are they saying? And what are they saying that they're not actually saying? What's
mm,
deeper than their words? Read into that. Because people say a lot without actually saying it.
mm. Understand. So just slowing down and listening is going to be that top quality for
Mhm.
you. I
I mean, it's
agree.
one of those big things besides the grind and the work and all of
Right.
that. Because I mean, I expose my kids to how much I work and how hard I work and all that stuff. And I hope that they take some of it away. And we'll
Mm,
find out in 20 years from now if they did or
yeah.
not. But that, be a good person.
Right. Like, I also used to be that guy who never really listened, who was just a chatterbox, and I always wanted the attention, right? Luckily, I kind of phased out of that and I realized there was a big problem with that. And I kind of went more of like a undercover, low key type of guy. And I just observed and I listened and I watched. And I feel like that was like a big pivot point for me in my life because now I'm actually absorbing things every single day. I'm not tunneled on myself anymore. I'm not tunnel visioned on myself and what I'm doing anymore. I'm kind of focusing more on like, this other person over here looks a little sad. I wonder why. I'm not gonna really go up and approach them about it, but like, I'm picking up on these things that maybe I wouldn't have if I was just, you know,
Mhm.
fully indulged in myself.
Absolutely. And I would say if that person was one of your clients or a member of your gym, you should walk up to them when
Yeah,
you have a moment
100%.
and be like, hey, man, what's going on today? You look like you're a little off. And maybe
Right.
they'll open up to you. and they'll feel super connected to you, or maybe they'll just be like, "No, I'm good, dude. Just a busy day.
Yeah.
I'm here to get my head straight." Cool. Let's
Yeah.
get your head straight.
Let's get after it. Yes, sir. Cool. So I have about like one or two more questions. Just want to get through them really quickly.
Cool.
So what are some things that mentors get wrong about mentorship? That's like a question that I really want to hear your response to.
They're trying to take, they're trying to force what's worked for them and make it work for you.
Hmm.
Hey, this is what I did here, and this is how it worked. Well, I'm in a different situation. It doesn't mean that it's going to work for me this way.
Hmm.
So again, I mean, to what we were just talking about, it means that that mentor really wasn't listening to your situation specifically, what you
Hmm.
have going on, because that's the biggest thing. Like, and also it's having accurate information. So a lot of times, just because something worked once doesn't mean it's going to work across the country, multiple
Hmm.
places, different demographics. And so I'll give a mentoring service a huge shout out, Two Brain Mentoring. Chris Cooper that owns it, and I know Chris. He works with thousands of gyms and will not recommend anything until he has seen it tested thousands of times and seen the data come back on that, and then he'll make a recommendation because he
Hmm.
knows the likelihood of it working versus it not working. And I think a lot of people have way too small of a sample size, and they make
Yeah.
recommendations off of their small sample, and that's where shit goes wrong.
Mm. What was the name of that thing again? Could you spell that out for us?
It's called Two Brain Business.
Two brain business. Okay, for sure.
Yep. And that's, I mean, anybody that's looking to get started, they will give you, and I get paid nothing by them. I don't work for them, anything, but they will give you the structure of how to start your gym, step by step, the metrics to monitor, the moves to make. Like they are
Hmm.
great for that.
Really? Yeah. So like it kind of sounds like to me that they are like imagine you're playing a game of poker, but you have them over your shoulder right now, and they're like, "This is the hand that you have. This is the best way that we should play." Basically, is that
Mhm.
essentially it for them?
Yeah, and they currently actively have like 1,000 gyms that they're mentoring.
That's awesome.
So they have, and I think they've mentored thousands of gyms along the way. A lot of my friends are mentors for them. I operated in their mastermind group as part of like they call it the Tinker program, where
Mm,
you're somewhat one step out of your gyms and having your management layer move into the mentorships part of it.
mm. Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I feel like that's actually a huge point because if you're just kind of like doing that cookie cutter bullshit, that's what I like to call it, right? Like one time I was in the physical
Hmm.
therapy world and literally it's just sideline clamshells all day. Cookie cutter bullshit, like for anything. They might come in with like an upper
Hmm.
body shoulder problem, and the next thing you know, they're on the freaking bench and they're on their side and doing sideline clamshells. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Right. So it's like it's
Yeah.
kind of like that, where it's like
Yep.
there's so much of a better way to like approach that, you know. And I love training because it goes so well hand in hand with life, which is like instead of giving them the cookie cutter bullshit with that sideline clamshell, how about we actually give them something that's going to help their shoulder directly, or like and then bring it over to life. This is the cards that you're dealing with. Maybe you're dealing with like some financial stress. Maybe you are working three jobs right now and you don't have that much
Yeah.
time to really build up like your education. But like this is what we can do with what we have.
Hmm.
I feel like that is the best way to kind of go about life. And that's honestly how I go about life. Just take it day by day, new opportunities arise, right? You draw new cards, you get a new hand, and you're just like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do now with what I have.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Cool. And like last question here, Rome. Do you think that taking on mentees kind of bleeds into the realm of coaching? And what I mean by that is like, as a mentor, I think that we have better levels of communication, right, than a coach. Not saying that coaches don't have good communication. Oftentimes that's the most important thing and this the thing that we drill the most. But I feel like a mentor has that on a different level. Maybe they're able to connect on a different level that maybe a coach can't. So would a person who is a great mentor be a better coach than someone who is like a great coach but not a mentor at all?
I would think so. I think that'd be an accurate statement that being a good mentor I think you're just a little bit more refined on the communication that your mentee needs.
Hmm.
Sometimes they might need that unforgiving, hardcore grind mentality, and that push to do it. And other times they might need some understanding. I get it, man. Life is heavy and life is hard. This is what you need to do right now, but offer a shoulder. And I think that that mentorship takes a more broader scope of looking at all of life versus a coach's sometimes a little bit more, not necessarily, not every coach, but a coach's scope is a little bit more narrow. What's
Hmm.
happening on the sports field or what's happening within the walls of this facility, and not looking
Right.
at the overall spectrum of that perfect day scenario. What are you driving for? What are you working so hard for? What are your goals? What are your aspirations um, beyond sport or fitness or that type of thing?
Coach Fight told me one time, I just want a question, trying to like build off of that and we'll end off. But Coach Fight told me that a great teacher can't necessarily be a great coach, but a great coach can be a great teacher. So do you think that adding in a mentor side of that, do you think that there's like now another level where it's like coach, mentor, and teacher?
Yeah, I would think so. And with that, it'd be the saying every coach is a coach.
Hmm.
Well, that coach someone turns into a mentor at a certain point because you
Right.
just slowly. It's just the longer you do it, the more you elevated it. Honestly, it's just perception. I have a why
Right.
I can see more than what you can see right now because I've done it longer, and I can give you
Hmm.
more guidance because I've done it longer and I've gone through the steps of what's it feel like to work these hours while having a family. How does it feel when um, you're trying to have your wife leave her job to come on to your staff, but you're taking a pay cut of $70,000 a year because that's what you need to do, but it's hard to do. And how do
Hmm.
you don't know what that feels like until you've been there and done that and can work people through it. And without those real life experiences, it's very hard to be that mentor for somebody.
Hmm. 100%. I think that we had to do another one of these and probably end up paying you for
Sure
that.
do.
But dude, like, yeah, like,
Yeah.
the thing that you were talking about, that last section, like, I really do want to dive into that on a very, very deep level. Like, I ask a lot of people the same question of like, what is it like to work and live life with your spouse? Like, do we need to have like a power couple like Alex Hermosi and his wife, or like Brian Mark and his wife, and maybe even you and like Coach Fight? Like, you guys all work together within your family. But you know, my girlfriend, she's not somebody who does anything strength and conditioning related. She has no idea what it means to even really bench press or do an RDL, right? So like kind of bridging that gap a little bit and maybe even touching upon, hey, is this even a necessary thing? If so, why do we need to do it that way? Or is there a way we can work around it and still have a great life, great relationship with our family and our spouse or whatever, you know, even though we're not as connected, we don't have as much time to spend with each other because we all know, right? Strength and conditioning, we're in there like all day, all night, you know. So we get home, we just sleep, and we just get ready for the next day, you know, things like that.
So
Yeah.
I agree. Dude. I'm happy to hop on to another podcast with you. I'll get quick reference for me. My wife didn't know anything about strength and conditioning. She was a high school English teacher,
Mm.
but she brings a whole different skill set to the table that elevates the business to another level because I don't need another one of me. I need my
Mm.
counterpart. I need someone to pick me up where I don't have those skills and she can drive those skills. That's what I
Mm.
need. And that's what I think finding a partnership because what do I need two of me?
Right.
I can hire someone that can come grind on the gym floor, but I need someone that can help push my thoughts and do the things that I can't do. But I'm
Mm.
happy to dive into that with you. Another thing, I got to hop
Yeah.
into a training session though.
Good.
So James, thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me on your
Thank you
show,
so
man.
much, Rom. I
I got to go back
appreciate you.
out there and keep training.
Yes,
Of
sir.
course.
And take it easy, man. Thank you.
You too.